There's a certain weight that settles in your gut when instinct whispers that something's off. I felt it the moment I noticed Haley had taken a full day off work without a word. It was subtle, an innocent enough detail, but married life trains you to notice patterns, and Haley wasn't one to deviate from routine. That morning she kissed me on the cheek like nothing was different. She even joked about her meeting schedule and complained about traffic on I-405. But later that afternoon, as I slid into the driver's seat of her car to refill her gas, something I did more often than she realized, I saw the receipt, folded carelessly and wedged into the crack between the seats. It was from a coffee shop in Silverdale, almost an hour away. The timestamp matched the window she was supposed to be in a strategy session with her marketing team in town. My eyes caught something else, a smattering of croissant crumbs crushed into the fabric. Haley hated croissants. Too buttery for her taste, she'd always said. That's when the unease sharpened. I didn't say anything. Not that night, not the next morning. But I started paying attention. The next thing I did was plant a recorder. It felt wrong in a way, like I'd crossed a line, but the uncertainty was worse. She always chatted with her best friend Kira on Friday nights. Glasses of wine, locked in the living room with her phone tucked in close, her voice hushed. I opened up the old lamp beside the bookshelf, tucked a digital recorder into the hollow base, and screwed the cover back on. The next morning I listened through clenched teeth. There it was, her voice bright and breathless, describing her Thursday. He booked that little Airbnb with the vines all over the fence. Derek made breakfast. Can you believe that? We had champagne at 11. Kira giggled, delighted. Haley hushed her, then continued. Evan thinks I'm at boxing class every night this week. Derek says it's stupid risky, but it makes it hotter. Boxing. The lies stung more than it should have. We'd both promised to get healthier, and she claimed she joined a fitness class to relieve stress. That week I signed up at the very same boxing studio she mentioned. I took classes every evening, watching the door while nursing bruised ribs and pride. Haley never walked in once. A week later I stepped deeper into the shadows. I rented a nondescript sedan under a fake name, downloaded a food delivery app, and clocked out of work early. She always left the office around 4, and I followed her from a safe distance, pretending to be another tired commuter on the freeway. When she pulled into a quiet residential neighborhood I'd never seen, my stomach tightened. I parked 2 blocks away, walked with a backpack, and rang the doorbell of the house across the street. No one answered. That gave me the window I needed. From behind the thick hedges, I spotted her through a curtainless window. She laughed and twirled. Barefoot, wearing a gray shirt that didn't belong to her. My shirt? No. His. I'd seen it before. A soft slate color with a fraying collar, suddenly hanging in our laundry 3 weeks ago. I thought maybe it was her brother's, left behind during his visit. But now it clung to her like it had always belonged. She kissed Derek like they'd been doing it for years. My hands trembled, but I kept still, memorizing every move, every minute she stayed. Later I returned under cover of night and placed a weatherproof camera inside a hollow garden gnome across the street. The next morning I had footage of her leaving the house and placing a soft kiss on Derek's neck before heading back to work. That same morning I walked past her car in the company lot and left a bouquet of flowers on her hood. Bright red roses with a card sign from Derek. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted tension, disruption. I wanted her to sweat. By the time she came home, she was rattled, just enough for me to move to the next step. While she ranted about some mix-up with a flower delivery, I offered to take the kids to the park. In those 45 minutes, I unlocked her tablet and uploaded all the files in her hidden folder, password protected, but no match for the recovery tool I'd quietly installed months earlier. The photos made me nauseous. Dozens of them, some with Derek, some clearly taken in hotel rooms I didn't recognize. Most disturbing were the shots of her reflection, posing, smirking, like she was starring in a movie only she understood. There was one photo, though, I couldn't stop staring at, a champagne flute in her hand, Derek's hand on her thigh, her wedding ring removed. That night, while she read in bed, I crept to the bookshelf. The second shelf was uneven. I pulled the books free and found a leather-bound journal tucked behind an old dictionary. Her handwriting spilled across the pages like an open wound. She described their first kiss, hidden behind her office building. Nights in rented rooms, soaked in alcohol and sex. Promises whispered on borrowed pillows. Then something worse. A note scrawled across a half-torn page. Derek says the South is calling. He's tired of hiding. We could start over. Evan would crumble, but maybe he'll recover. I closed the journal, my pulse thundering in my ears. There was no room for doubt anymore. Only preparation. I placed everything back exactly as I found it. When she kissed me goodnight, I kissed her back, because the next phase had already begun. The morning after I found her journal, I stared at the eggs sizzling in the pan, my fingers twitching to crack something more than a shell. Hailey moved behind me like everything was normal. Same robe, same fake yawn, same quiet humming as she scrolled her phone. But I knew better now. Her mind was elsewhere. Somewhere warmer. Somewhere with Derek. That week, I activated a prepaid SIM card under a name I lifted from an old junk mail letter. Marvin Black, whoever he was about to become her nightmare. I crafted the first message at midnight while she slept beside me, her breath even, dreamless. "Hey, it's Derek's buddy. Just making sure you're good. He said you're nervous." The reply came by noon. Her answer was cautious, but not cautious enough. She asked which buddy. I told her Mike, the guy from the South Carolina job site. A total fabrication, just vague enough to sound real. She took the bait. "He told you about me?" she wrote. "What exactly did he say?" That was all I needed. I played her slow, like a mark with a secret worth bleeding out, and she gave me everything. She mentioned the hotel on Fifth, how they'd stopped using her card and started using cash. She even joked about how easy it was to fool her husband when he was so caught up being Mr. Responsible. I nearly cracked my phone in half. The next morning, I drove straight to the bank. I requested the full printout of our joint account history. 100 pages of digital paper later, I was staring at 4 different transfers to prepaid Visa cards I'd never seen. One stood out, $1,100 to a card activated the day she claimed her car battery died and she had to stay late. I pushed further. The bank had ATM images, and there he was, Derek, wearing the same navy hoodie I'd seen in the window, standing at the ATM like he had every right to our life. I didn't sleep that night. I hired a PI, someone clean, discreet, and not local. Within 5 days, the investigator turned up gold. Derek had 2 fraud complaints in the past 6 years, both settled, both suspicious. I ordered a background check through a different source just to be sure, and the same pattern showed up: insurance scams, falsified car accidents, business shell games. And now Hailey was tethered to this man with an insurance policy of her own. That revelation came when I submitted a quiet records request to her car insurer. I asked if there were any recent changes to her beneficiary designations, citing a hypothetical situation. The answer came through email the next morning. Yes, the primary beneficiary had been updated 2 months ago to a Derek Langley. I sat in the dark for a long time after that. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't even love. It was preparation, contingency. She'd tied financial survival to a man who knew how to manipulate paper trails. Maybe she thought I'd vanish quietly. Maybe she thought I'd break down, take the blame, and let her walk away with the kids, the car, and a pile of carefully laundered sympathy. I wasn't going to give her the chance. That night, I accessed her work CRM system while she was in the shower. She'd left her laptop open, and her Slack notifications pinged in the corner of the screen. Her team was chatting about Friday's client payment. I opened the invoice file and took a screenshot. It was a shell project. No contact info, no proof of services, just a name and an account. I cross-referenced it later and found the payment scheduled to an LLC that didn't exist 2 months ago. I started building the case, folder after folder. I documented everything with timestamps, dates, screenshots. When she left for work the next day, I reported the conflict of interest to her company's compliance office. I encrypted the files and shared a password-protected folder. 2 hours later, HR replied that they were opening a formal investigation. By dinner, she was distant, distracted, stirring the pasta like it had personally insulted her. The next strike came at home. While she showered again that night, I packed a set of her clothes, just the favorites. Her robe, The satin one she always wore when Derek texted her something sweet, her gym leggings, the ones she never actually used at the gym. I folded them into boxes and replaced the hanger with a plain sheet of printer paper. On it, printed in 12-point font, were her messages to Derek. I chose the most damaging one, the one that said, "I want to start over. If Evan finds out, he's not going to survive this. But I'm ready if you are." I left it there. The next morning she said nothing. She saw it. She had to have. But she was rattled. Too much so to ask questions. She overcompensated, asked if I wanted a ride to work. I declined. She made coffee, 2 sugars instead of 1. I didn't touch it. Instead, I made a call. Quietly, strategically, child services. Not an accusation, just a consultation. I framed it like I was concerned about recent changes in the home environment. I said my wife was undergoing emotional stress, that she'd been secretive, distracted, and possibly involved in questionable financial activity. I asked what steps I could take to document concerns. They walked me through the process. By the end of the call, I had a checklist. One item on it was a psychological report. I scheduled an appointment the next day and detailed everything. Her absences, her detachment, her irrational spending. The therapist took notes. Lots of them. Later that week, I sent a single manila envelope, no return address, to her company's compliance team. Inside were photos of Hailey kissing Derek during company hours, each printed on glossy paper, each with a time and GPS stamp. I didn't hear her cry that night, but I heard her door lock for the first time in years, and that was exactly what I wanted. I didn't sleep the night after Hailey locked our bedroom door. I lay on the living room couch, fully dressed, listening to the clicks and creaks of the house like it might whisper her next move. But she didn't move. Not yet. She was paralyzed. Good. That meant she was scared. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know how much I knew, or how far I was willing to go. The next day I made my quietest move yet, but one that would cut deepest. I met a kid from the local college through an anonymous tech board. $600 cash only, no names. I gave him a burner laptop and full cloud access to Hailey's phone backups. She never logged out of her account after a sync we did years ago, and her credentials hadn't changed. Within hours, he unlocked every archive, photos, texts, app histories, and, most importantly, voice messages, dozens of them. Her voice thick with whine and desire, whispering to Derek, murmuring threats. Evan won't survive if he finds out. You don't understand how dangerous he can be if he's cornered. Another message. I hate how calm he always is, like he's above everyone else, like I'm a guest in my own home. I copied the worst ones, printed them on transcript paper, and tucked them into an envelope. That same afternoon, I wrapped the envelope in her favorite book, The Song of Achilles. I knew exactly where to send it. Every Wednesday, Hailey's mother hosted her book club at the small library downtown. I waited in the parking lot until I saw her car. Then casually, I walked past the back entrance and slid the book into the donation box. That evening, Hailey came home distracted, nervously glancing at her phone every few minutes. Her eyes flicked to mine across the dinner table, but I didn't offer her anything to hold on to. I was ice. I cleared the table without a word, then spent the rest of the night going through the footage from my outdoor camera. It caught everything. Her leaving Derek's house, her fixing her hair in the car mirror, her kissing him like the world outside didn't exist. I stitched together a full 6-minute edit from 3 separate days. No sound, just footage. Subtitled and time-stamped, I saved it on a flash drive. The next night, we were invited to dinner at her sister's place. Something planned weeks ago. It felt like a trap, or maybe just poor timing. But I agreed. I wanted that dinner. I needed that gathering. Her family still adored me, still asked me for home repair tips and budget recipes. And now they would know. After dessert, while the rest of the family played cards, I walked into the study. Her sister's laptop sat open on the desk. I slid the flash drive into the port, transferred the folder labeled Event Planning, and walked out. Simple, quiet. The next morning, I called her sister and left a message. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. Hailey's crying. Mom's furious. What the hell is going on? I told them all I'd explain in person. I asked them to come over. Her mother, her sister, her brother, even Kira, the best friend who enabled all of it. I said I had something they needed to see. Hailey didn't know what was coming. She was on the patio with her phone when the doorbell rang. When she saw who was standing there, her color drained. "Is everything okay?" she asked me, eyes darting like a trapped animal. "Number, but it will be," I said, gesturing toward the living room. They sat awkwardly on the couches as I turned on the television and mirrored the laptop screen. No preamble, just evidence. The camera footage, the messages, the photo backups, the altered bank statements, the CRM fraud, the private audio files played in 10-second bursts, just enough to feel the weight of every word. When I reached the section about the car insurance change, listing Derek as the sole beneficiary, her mother stood up. "You changed your policy for him?" Hailey's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to." "No," her mother cut her off, voice sharp, wounded. "You meant to. You planned this. You rewrote your life, and you left us all out." I watched from the corner, silent. Her family's love for her had always been untouchable. Now it unraveled in front of her, thread by thread. The room broke into arguments, her brother yelling, her sister crying, Kira quietly backing toward the door. I didn't say a word. This wasn't my mess to clean anymore. Later that night, Hailey tried to talk. "I need you to understand." "I already understand," I said flatly, "and that's the problem." That same night, Derek disappeared. I don't know how he found out the walls were closing in. Maybe Hailey called him. Maybe the insurance company tipped him off. But his phone was disconnected and his social profiles went dark. His apartment emptied in less than 48 hours. Coward. The fallout continued. Her company placed her on unpaid suspension pending investigation. The private CRM logs had done their job. She stopped going into the office and started pacing the house instead, like a ghost trapped in a home that no longer knew her name. 3 days later, we got the court date. 12 minutes. That's all it took for the restraining order to go through. Between the psychological evaluation, the forged documents, and the surveillance data, the judge barely blinked. As she stepped out of the courthouse, paper trembling in her hand, I didn't wait. I turned and walked away, keys already in hand. I wasn't done. Not yet. But I was close. 5 days after the court hearing, the house no longer felt like mine. It was too clean, too quiet, and too full of ghosts. I didn't tell Hailey when I made the deal, just signed the papers with a realtor friend who owed me a favor and let him list it at a steal. Within 48 hours, a young couple placed an offer. I accepted, packed what mattered, and drove north without a word. Hailey found out from the for sale sign hammered into the lawn. The kids were too young to understand why we left in such a hurry, only that we were going on an adventure, and Dad had promised they'd have their own rooms and a new backyard. I made it sound exciting. I made it sound like a fresh start. The truth? I needed somewhere she couldn't find us, somewhere the echoes of her voice didn't live in the walls. We landed in a small mountain town in Northern California. No one knew us, and that was the point. I signed the kids up for school under their middle names, changed emergency contacts, and deleted every trace of our old lives from the internet. The house I bought wasn't much, but it came with land and silence. A barn-sized hangar at the back of the property had been used for aircraft restoration. I turned it into a workshop the next day. We didn't bring furniture, just the essentials. New beds, old photos, a battered toolbox I'd owned since college. The rest I left behind. Hailey tried reaching out on day 2. A letter showed up at our old P.O. box, forwarded, scanned, and emailed to me by my realtor. Inside, a single-page apology, covered in soft handwriting and tear-stained ink. She wrote about regret, about the nights she couldn't sleep. She said Derek had lied, fled, blocked her calls. Said the silence I left her in was worse than any fight. She included a drawing, crayon-colored, supposedly from our youngest. A picture of a house, a sun, 3 stick figures. She'd photoshopped it. I recognized the original on my hard drive. She'd simply erased herself from it and sent it like a peace offering. I forwarded the letter to the district attorney. Violating a restraining order had consequences. After that, she got smarter, or maybe more desperate. She tried reaching me through a mutual friend we hadn't spoken to in years. She asked him to call, to just check in. But the moment he said her name, I hung up. I filed a report. It wouldn't stick, not yet, but it set a record. If she pushed again, it would add up. Instead, I focused on rebuilding. Each morning began with a walk in the woods. My boots crushed pine needles. My hands stayed warm around a chipped ceramic mug filled with black coffee. The air smelled like bark and wet stone. The silence was honest. Out here, no one asked why I suddenly had full custody. No one whispered questions behind my back. I was just Evan, the guy fixing up the old campground, the guy who brought cookies to school pickup, the guy who kept to himself and paid in cash. A few weeks in, I got a contract offer from a traveling van company. They needed help converting sprinters into campers. I said yes. It meant work, cash, and most importantly, distraction. I built cabinets, installed solar kits, reworked insulation. Every van I finished was like exhaling a part of the past. The kids adjusted quickly. They made friends. They smiled more. And every day I made sure they felt safe, not just physically, but emotionally, like they never had to brace themselves for the storm that had once lived in our old kitchen. A month after moving, our wedding anniversary came around. 10 years. The date used to mean champagne and takeout sushi. This year I took the kids to the lake at dawn. We skipped stones, fed ducks, and then I sent them to build a driftwood fort near the trees. I took out the wedding photo from my jacket. It was creased from being folded for weeks, edges worn, faces faded. Hailey's smile looked so certain in that photo, like she believed in what we were building. I stared at it for a long time, then set it in the sand and lit a match. The photo curled inward like a dying leaf. Her face was the first to vanish. I didn't cry. Instead, I pulled out my phone, wiped clean, used only for work and school, and snapped a picture of the kids with the lake behind them, holding sticks like swords and wearing their homemade crowns of grass and bark. That was the only photo I kept. Everything else, the albums, the videos, the moments that belonged to a different version of life, was backed up in a digital vault and locked behind 5 layers of encryption, just in case they ever asked, just in case they ever wanted to know. But I didn't need them. I had what mattered, and she had nothing but silence. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this, and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.